Very beautiful people of the Central Region and Ghana. This morning, we have the real privilege of speaking with the President of the Republic of Ghana. The President is on a working tour, and for us as a station, it's a privilege to be speaking with him on your behalf. So, Mr. President, on behalf of the good people of the Central Region and Cape Coast, I especially welcome you to our very beautiful studios.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and I think this is about the third or fourth time I've been at your studios, but it's improving. The last time it was a small room.
I know
somewhere.
It was in a hall of residence, yeah. And I remember, Mr. President, in 2016. I think it was a sunny morning, and then you walked into the studio, and it was a period that. There were a lot of voices. There were a lot of, pessimistic voices of you can never become a president.
Yes, all of
and
that.
And here you were. And I remember I spoke to you. Do you remember we spoke at my studio?
Yes,
that was in
I remember.
2016.
That's why I'm remembering that I've been here several times, and that the premises were this certainly been upgraded. Since then, I have to congratulate you on that.
Just as you have upgraded as a president of the Republic of Ghana.
From candidate to president.
But let's talk about that. How does that make you feel, especially in a very crucial season of your life where I wouldn't say almost everybody, but there were a lot of signals and people were talking, you can never become a president. And here you are, President of the Republic of Ghana, getting to the end of your first term in office. How does that make you feel, sir?
Well, first of all, I think people who talk like that firstly don't have an understanding of history. We've heard those kind of talks before. Winston Churchill could never be, etc. So it's an ahistorical view of the life of nations. That's what gets people to make these comments. Because we were told, I remember vividly in the 90s, that when Akufo was seeking the leadership of the country, and Ashanti can never be elected. Nobody likes us. And he was elected not once but twice successfully. So I think that those who talk like that usually betray their lack of understanding of how the historical process works. So I don't allow those kind of things to get at me and bring my spirit down. I'm more concerned about the ability to reach out to people and tell them really what it is that you want to do. And in so saying, let me first of all also say a big hello. But I think that for me is the key.
Okay.
The capacity to talk and reach people and get them your message. Obviously, since becoming president, there's more to it than message. Then there's the issue of delivery, that you said you would do this, have you done it? You said you would do this, have you done it?
Mr. President, is that an eventual realization that there is more to it than just talking? Is that something
No. But when you don't have the instruments to do more than talk, talk is what you have to do.
Yeah.
That's the beginning. But it is when you have the instruments of action in your hands, that's when you realize that, yes, the talk is extremely important. Thought has to come before action.
Yeah.
If you have not thought things through, when you begin to act, you'll always act in a blind manner. So it is important to do the thinking and the talking and the messaging. But when you are president, in my view, you are judged even more, not by what you've said, but what you have done. Because it is very easy, in many cases, that the talk and the deed, there's a big gap. I'm hoping that what Ghanaians will understand by December is that in the case of this particular president and this particular political leader, the gap between what he said and what he has done is narrow. It's almost non-existent. That's my wish. I want to come across to the people of Ghana as an honest man, a man they can trust because of my performance. What I've done in government, the key matters that I said I was going to do, I've gone a long way in doing virtually all of them, and that therefore, when they look at their future in these very difficult times, all of us are aware of the difficult times that we live in, the COVID world, which has been has had a devastating impact on all countries, on all economies around the world, that they have before them a political leader who has walked his talk, who can therefore be trusted when he says, I can help get us out of this situation and put our country and ourselves in a better space.
Okay.
That is the main message that I want to deliver this December.
Great. Mr. President, I think you already yesterday, as you came to the Central Region, you had the opportunity to fraternize, you had the opportunity to go to certain project sites, and especially at KEA in Elmina, there seem to be a couple of issues. In this season, I think your administration is making a strategic move. It's a bumper season for all, the 4 coastal areas or regions in the country. And as usual, would have prepared Fanti for you, But the interesting thing is the bumper season is a different thing. Around this time, fishers are marching in protest, they're marching in protest of cycle, an illegal activity which the Fisheries Act 2010 says it is illegal. Close neighbors like Elmina, where you were yesterday, in Central Region, APAM also comes up as an example. Cycle is rife, and operators brazenly and openly indulge in these activities. People want to understand the commitment that you've made in fighting cycle.
I think the commitment is strong. But as always in these things, you have also got to have the tools to back your commitment. For the first time, some fishermen who have been found engaged in the practice have been arrested, are being put before the courts. But you're dealing in a situation where, until we came, the activity that we're talking about is activity on the seas, on the high seas, illegal transshipment, etc. When we came into office, and I want to make this point very clear, there were no serviceable patrol boats available to the law enforcement agencies. So no matter what you said, no matter how you protest against the practice, you didn't even have the means to be able to do anything about it.
But sir, it is illegal and it is still prevailing.
But I'm saying to you, it's like when somebody comes and steals from your home. You are going to depend on the police's capacity to go out and arrest that person. If the police don't have the means to do so, how are you going to get relief? There were no, I'm not saying now, I'm saying then, there were no serviceable patrol boats available to the Marine Police. Today, we have 3 Marine boats. We have ordered 6 more. And the forward operating base, which is being established in Zilimbo, has also procured 10 fast patrol boats. That is going to strengthen the capacity of the Marine Police and the law enforcement agencies to be able to do the work. That's why we're beginning to see arrests. So that is one very important statement, that we are now trying to equip. Give you some examples. When I came into office, the 31,000 police service of the country had 480 serviceable vehicles across the whole nation. Today, an additional 700 odd has been bought for them. Helicopters have been bought for them. These marine boats have been bought for them. We're strengthening the capacity of the law enforcement agencies to be able to carry out the work. So that's the fundamental thing. Secondly, the discussions about the close season has also enabled us to sensitize the fishing community about the dangers and of what illegal transshipment is. Of course, that is a process of sensitization and education. It takes time for it to have an effect, but that is also being done. The Minister for Fisheries, very dynamic young woman from Kroa, from a fishing community, spent her life looking at issues of agriculture and is of the view that the current law that deals with this matter has some deficiencies. So she is in the process of bringing to cabinet the draft of a new law that she hopes will be stronger in terms of strengthening the hands, of the law enforcement agencies in dealing with this matter. Yes, we recognize that there's a problem. But with all problems, you have to, first of all, identify the tools. The tools are one, the logistical capability of dealing with things are happening in the high seas. Even if you can't get there, what is the purpose of crying?
So if we can't get there, and I appreciate,
we're trying to get there.
I appreciate
We're
because your administration has put in a lot of measures to shore up, the police service, the navy, to ensure that the battle is fought there. But at the local level, at the shores of Apam, at the shores of Elmina, those who patronize, the psycho fish that is encouraging what is happening on the high seas, they are right there.
Yeah, but you're not going to be able to stop them.
Why not?
Unless you cut off the supply.
And as we fight to get resources to fight the supply, there's nothing we can do at the local level, sir.
Other than police measures, arresting those who are engaged in the activity, and bring them, it can be done. But at the end of the day, what you want to do is to find effective methods for dealing with it. And that essentially is to cut off the supply. And the supply means winning the fight out in the seas that makes it difficult for the psychoactivity to continue. That's the way we're looking at it. And I think that over a period of time, it will be found to be the most effective way to do it.
Okay. Let me quickly address you, those of us listening to us via our tune-in and social media handles. Remember, we're also streaming live on our Facebook pages, and we're live on Eagle FM as well, 87.7 megahertz, that you can send in. Of course, there are still more issues that you would expect me to ask. But Mr. President, one of the issues that for the entire week has been coming up is the fact that you were elected into power as president at a very crucial time, a time that Ghanaians generally felt we needed a change politically because of perceived act of corruption. And you have spent a major part of your life, as a lawyer, as a former attorney general, fighting corruption and injustices. People want to understand the kind of commitment that you have made in fighting corruption, that, Ghanaians should repose their confidence in you for more years.
I think that the fight against corruption that I have spearheaded is multifaceted. There are some to do with behavior. You have others to do also with institutional empowerment. You have the prosecutorial aspect of it, and then you have also, of course, the issue of sensitization again. Let's take each one of them. And I want to underline this. I know people like to snare at it, but it is important. Every time any allegation has been made against an appointee of mine, I've had that allegation investigated, whether it is by Parliament, whether it is by SHRAJ, whether it is by the police. All the allegations that were leveled against appointees of my government, those allegations have not gone without consequence. They have been investigated. If at the end of the investigation it is found that the allegation was merely that, an allegation, that there was no substance to it, I am not going to prosecute people on the basis of mere allegation. I would do so on the basis that, at the very least, some kind of what the lawyers call the prima facie case has been established that entitles you to go to court. That's the first one. The second, the due process. As we sit now, 21 officials, public officials, are on trial for various acts of corruption. Some of them have been in the National Communications Authority case. Some of them have been convicted and sentenced to quite long periods of jail, having to refund monies. Others have also been convicted who have been asked to refund monies. Others are in the process of negotiating refunds and settlements. But those proceedings are ongoing. But they are not proceedings that can take place overnight because of due process. And I insist on it. I don't want anybody in this country who's put on trial for any offense to be shortchanged as far as due process is concerned. To me, it's a fundamental aspect of a nation governed by the rule of law. The accused person in the dock has to have every opportunity to defend him or herself. And that means applications in the courts, appeals to the Supreme Court, to the Court of Appeal. All of these things delay. But they are a very important aspect of making sure that due process is observed. Due process can only be just for the state. It has to be for every citizen, especially accused persons. That's it. Thirdly, I think my government has done more in strengthening the capability of the anti-corruption agencies in the country, more than any other government in recent history. We increased, when you are talking about the anti-corruption agencies, I'm talking about the Parliament, I'm talking about SRAJ, I'm talking about the Auditor General's Office, the Attorney General's Office. The budgetary allocation that was made for these 5 institutions in 2017 was a 25% increase on the allocation for 2016. Again, in 2018, we witnessed a 34% increase on what had happened in 2017, and the same thing in 2019. So you have seen that systematically there has been a conscious effort to strengthen the institutional capacity and capability of the anti-corruption agency. It's like what we were talking about, the psycho matter. You're speaking, you were corruption, and then the agencies themselves who are set up to do the work don't have the means and the wherewithal to be able to do it.
But it's your passion, Mr. President. You had such an unmatched passion, I'm living the talk. The special prosecutor's office. Have they achieved your desire, expectation?
First of all, it's meant to be an independent office. We fulfilled the campaign promise that we would set it up, and I put there, that was one part that I had to do with the constitution of the office, was put in there a man who was not a member of my party, very well known, was in fact a member of the opposition and a high-ranking member of it, but a man whom I had come across in public life and felt had the capability to do the work. That he himself was a person of integrity and was keen and interested in the fight. So I put him there. We have done our best to find the necessary resources to have his office work well. He's working. I'm sure at some stage or another he's also going to give an account of his stewardship of that office. I do not want to be in a position to second guess what he's doing and also to be making comments like, I'm not happy about what the special... Coming from a president, those kind of remarks have a different kind of impact. He's supposed to be an independent operator within our space. Let it be so, and let him be able to continue to do his work. But the critical part is that the institution has been set up. But when we're talking about
is it about transshipment?
No. When we're talking about the institutional capability, strengthening it. You remember the Auditor General himself saying how refreshing he had found the attitude of the government in terms of strengthening his office. We bought vehicles for him, and the audit service had not had any vehicles for X number of times. So that's it. There's also another aspect of the matter, which is something that people don't pay enough attention to, in my view. Until we came into office, the Public Procurement Authority made 0 savings in their scrutiny of public procurement. 0. I mean, and let me repeat it, 0. Procurement transactions that came before the PPA were approved as a matter of course, whether they were sole sourcing, whether they were restrictive tendering. Between 2017 and 2019, I don't have the figures for 2020 yet, as you can imagine, the Public Procurement Authority, despite all the problems there were with the now suspended chief executive of the Public Procurement Authority, saved 2.75 billion cedis in their scrutiny of procurement transactions, either sole sourcing or restrictive tendering, i.e. they were doing their work which they were required to do in scrutinizing public transactions and making sure that value for money was obtained by the public. It's a very important part in the fight against corruption. And as I say, I'm confident that the 2020 figures, when they come out, will continue this trend about savings in the public space.
Okay. Mr. President, I think yesterday's agenda was quite interesting. And you will be going on the field today to be looking at a number of projects. Let's look at the Central region and Cape Coast to be specific. The region has a huge, untapped areas in industry. When it comes to industry, when it comes to tourism, the people of Central region will want to know the commitment you are making specifically to Cape Coast. Any projects that you can commit to, that you can point, my administration spearheaded this. And I'm asking you this question on the issue of industry because we're very much aware that your administration is yet to touch the Commander Sugar Factory that is supposed to provide jobs.
The Commander Sugar Factory, the discussions with the investor have been concluded. The minister, I believe, is on his way to coming to cabinet with a final agreement that cabinet will have to endorse before the agreement goes through. We came across a factory which to produce sugar, which had no access to any sugar producing facilities. The planning was clearly just, let me put it, as a political gimmick to let the people of Commander think that something was being done, when at the end of the day nothing was being done, nothing concrete was being done. So it was necessary to start virtually from ground zero, re-look at the planning, reposition the factory in such a way that the raw material supply could be then validated and assured. All that has been done.
But say if it was just a problem of raw materials, then something has been done. A loan had been procured. The establishment had been done. So was it just a problem of raw material that possibly scared your administration from touching it?
No, it wasn't. We were not scared from touching it.
Okay.
We went into it, but we needed to make sure that the planning of the factory.
And when you say planning, what variables are we looking at?
I'm talking about the whole process, beginning from the raw material input to the process itself, being done in a manner which would guarantee the viability of the factory. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And that there was a need for us to look at the project de novo, as it were, and make sure that the processes were there that would enable. There are several other projects that are going on. There are 15 1D, 1F projects in the Central region alone.
Any in Cape Coast? Anything? Because the people will want to also understand your administration's contribution to the development of Cape Coast.
There are two projects are currently in the works for Cape Coast, which are about to see the light of day. But there are two 1D, 1F projects that are targeted for Cape Coast. I would rather wait for it to be concluded before we outdoor them. But two have been done. And then the work that is being done in the tourist area. You can well imagine that Cape Coast has a great deal of contribution to make to the tourist area. So from Cape Coast, Elmina, Cape Coast, the various castles, the rehabilitation, the strengthening of their management, all of these. We saw the benefits that Cape Coast had from the year of return. That was a government initiative to boost tourism in Ghana. It was extremely effective. It brought a lot of money into Cape Coast and into the tourist areas. Unfortunately, this year, we've had to deal with this awful phenomenon of COVID-19, which has brought us a halt, especially to the leisure industry. Cape Coast, to a large extent, is one of the places where the leisure industry is strong, and therefore we're hoping very soon all of us will be abandoning these masks and we will be able to return our lives to normal. And I have no doubt that the infrastructure that is being put in place for tourism in the country. Cape Coast
Talk
will
about
benefit.
tourism, sir. Talk about tourism, because the people of Cape Coast feel strongly that we need an airport. I don't know whether this call has come before you. If it hasn't come before you, this issue predominated the calls that we took this morning. People feel strongly that looking at our potential in tourism, we need to put up an airport.
This is a place which is, 1.5 hours from the capital, which is the major international airport. There's an airport in Takoradi. Well, the studies are ongoing.
Go ahead. You don't see the need of an airport.
I'm not going to say the need. These things, they're not the response of a government should not just be people say we need an airport. The response of a government should be the matter has been thoroughly examined and the need has been established. I think that is the process that the Ministry of Aviation is going through. It's doing the same with Akufo-Addo from the region from which I come, which is also another regional location which is very near Accra, another an hour and a half, to be able to decide for ourselves whether in fact the need for the airport can be justified when you have Accra, you have Kumasi, you have Tamale, you have Takoradi, whether on the coast, with Accra's presence, there's a need for an additional airport.
Okay. Let me just bring up this question, if you don't mind, because this is the first time I'm attempting to read a question from one of our audience, and if you don't mind, Mr. President, I want to do it. This one says the Bank of Ghana and other regulators, such as the SEC, that is the Security Exchange Commission, embarked on various exercises with the aim of cleaning up the financial sector, and this was to boost the financial confidence of investors in the financial system of the country. This has also led to a number of people losing their investment and jobs. Mr. President, can you confirm that investing in the money market of Ghana is safer than before, and that these Ghanaian-owned institutions could not have been salvaged, at least for the employment they provide? And will investors be able to get their investment, especially those whose investment is still locked up with the Gold Coast Securities?
I think there's a great deal of confusion and misinformation about this. There are about 10,000 people working in the banking sector globally when we came. As a result of the measures that were taken to prevent the system from collapsing, because the collapse of the system would have led to 10,000 people being put out on the street. We were able to save the jobs of 7,000. There's 3,000 people who, as a result of the restructuring, lost their jobs. So, yes, there were some job losses, but there were job losses that were mitigated by the speed with which government acted to prevent the system from collapsing. Because if the system had been allowed to go on, and the collapse of the system had been foretold and foreseen as far back as 2012, analyses that were made by the World Bank and other institutions for the Bank of Ghana and for the Ministry of Finance, which showed quite clearly that if the trajectory on which the financial system was on continued, the system was going to collapse with untold consequences for. Those are the reports which we came across when we came, and we decided that really, instead of just twiddling our thumbs, we would have to act. Secondly, the depositors. I'll come to the consequences later. Depositors, everybody who was caught up in the banks that failed, the banks, everybody has been paid, 100%. Everybody has been paid. Then you come to the savings and loans, the microfinance institutions, and then the investment funds. Microfinance, savings and loans, 98%, not 100%, 98% of depositors and claimants, I think it's something going towards 5.4 billion cedis worth of money, have also been paid.
98%.
98%. In the case of the investment funds, arrangements have been made. I think the amount of money involved there is at some 1 point, let me get the figure correctly. The 5.4 billion has to do with the amounts of money that the receiver has in his hands to pay for depositors in the microfinance companies, the savings and loans, and then the finance houses.
That excludes the investment, right?
No, together.
Okay.
Together.
Right.
Altogether, the amount of money that has gone into shoring up the system is 21 billion cedis to make sure that the monies that depositors had made would be fully refunded. So that exercise is ongoing. The receiver has not finished his work. The information I have is that by September, he would have completed the refund and the repayment of everybody who was affected. So that's important. The measures that have been taken, because apart from curing the issues of the past, we have then to look forward. Very strong measures have been taken by the Bank of Ghana, who is the regulator of the financial system, under the leadership of this excellent new governor that we have, Ernest Addison, are measures that have gone to strengthen considerably the ethos, the management, and the practices of the banking sector. The end result of it is that we now have a banking sector, a banking sector that is much better capitalized than the one that we had before, is very much more liquid than it was before, and is giving greater assistance to the private sector than we had before. These statements of mine are things that can be verified. They're not just a government's propaganda. They're statements that can be verified by people like you, journalists, media people, when a government makes these claims. The results of what is going on in the banking sector in terms of stronger banks, in terms of more liquid banks, in terms of banks supporting the private sector, all of these are facts out there which can be verified. And that is the result of these measures. It's one of the most difficult decisions that I had to take. When the Minister for Finance, the Vice President of the Bank of Ghana came to tell me that there was an urgent need for us to take the actions that we did over the banking sector because of, obviously, of its impact on the lives of so many people. But I believe at the end of the day, difficult it was. And sometimes this is the inescapable part of government, that you're required to do things that in the immediate short run will definitely hurt some people. But you're looking at the broad picture and looking at also what will fortify the management and the progress of the country. You have to go forward and make these decisions.
Well, people, I know that you wish to hear the president on a number of issues, but unfortunately our time is up. In as much as I have your questions, our time is up. But Mr. President, can I ask you a final question?
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, sir. This is a message that came from Australia. And Nana is a lecturer with the University of Cape Coast on study leave in Australia. And Nana writes, criminal investigation in Ghana has been questioned severally in instances like the missing Takrady girls, the Major Mahama suspected arson cases, like the Central Medical Stores, markets, and others. When the Melcom building in Ghana collapsed some years ago, forensic scientists were imported to investigate the matter. The twin fire and flood case actually made bare the defect in our forensics and human identification as a nation. He goes on to say, let me just jump to say, what is the president doing about the state of a laboratory that has been put up? And this laboratory, if we are to trace, it says the twin fire disaster is actually made by the effect or the defect in our forensics and human identification since the refurbishment of the Ghana Police Forensic Laboratory in 2011 by the European Union, a £3 million project. The laboratory is now under stress and has seen no significant resourcing. You want to understand what your administration will be doing or is doing about the state of this laboratory to enable its maximum capacity.
I think that the resources that is necessary to be able to get the laboratory are being addressed. That's what I can say for the time. And these are the matters that you raised, are all matters that are under very active investigation. Nobody is forgetting the Takrady girls or the other issues. The Major Muhammad, as you know, is in the courts. The prosecution is ongoing. So it isn't as if these are matters that have been ignored or put on the back burner. On the contrary, they're continuing.
Okay, so of course, he says as a nation we have the capacity rather than bringing foreigners to investigate issues. Mr. President, did you know that the University of Cape Coast has a forensic science department? The university does.
I'm not surprised.
Okay, but of course that there is also the lack of resources for the maximum operation of the UCC Forensic Science Department. Would you want to put in any word of commitment in resourcing that of the University of Cape Coast as well?
You have taken me by surprise. Let me find out what the realities are before I make any commitment.
Thank you very much. We'll give you the opportunity, if you don't mind, since we are in Cape Coast. You will go. Na ye wo pimfini mantene so nzama bebre na aka de eba yaw da na etwa na mon akọ bia bebre and then so boko ya me ya adoma ochina was a one party manifesto was about to go nyi na nanom bedi nkomo ma ye di ho komo was studio he say betuma abono tofa wo fanta
well fanta ka de mama
but ya ka cycle ho asem e ka den se betuma kan fanta na ncha
ne ye ba be kan nyina bio
ye kan nyina e
be ba be kan ne se me de me se amanfo be hwe behu se opanyin oba abigya wanim ka se wonen fa tidie nhyanimu na yento abama no na ma omado so no obaye adwuma waye a yinyina ehu se adwuma no enye adwuma kitwa waba bo share so be say no ne dodo no a wadi so nti saa panyin yo panyin a ebetumi di yankra ahye ne mu ebetumi di ejidie ahye ne mu nti ogina ho no ka se okine bibiom me ba be say ni a asisi ejinidi na ye boa ma ne duase hu a ewo no ho no aye nduase hu ebetumi ama omane tumpon Sani and addition and be and no need teach you as a man of person because 50 months engineer mechi in 2016 the processor GDN one in Yami 2016 one in Koso engineer mechi Niemboa no soon or a Koso in Nejuma.
Mr. President, we appreciate the pleasure of your company this morning. Thanks a lot for visiting us and giving us the opportunity to ask you questions.
It's excellent. I've enjoyed being here very much. And
thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. I have no doubt this will not be the last time I come here. I'll be here again.
Let me say amen to that. And we wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
All right.
Thank you.